Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt down in the catacombs. It's been a while. We've taken a brief hiatus. There are a number of things that are going on, including the kickoff of Season 3, which is going to be starting very soon, I hope. Right, Producer Rob?
With any luck.
We're working on it. We had an opportunity this past week to sit down with Steve Wood, who runs the Family Life International Center. We had him in town to give a presentation at the Argument of the Month here in St. Paul, which is run by our good friend Kent Wookturl. And Steve tackled the big question of pornography. It wasn't an easy thing to tackle, but he did a great job. And basically the reason that we had him in was because pornography has become such a huge thing. I mean, it really is the 9 billion pound gorilla in the parlor of everyone. I mean, we're all dealing with this, with smartphones and the technology of the internet and so forth. You know, our 12-year-olds now have access to the largest porn shop in the history of the human race. It's an issue that needs to be confronted. Steve Wood is doing a great job, and he came in just a couple of days before the premiere of this foul new movie, The 50 Shades of Grey, which I have no intention of taking a point-by-point rebuttal, Rob. I mean, what's the point?
Yeah.
The irony is that people who are, I mean, good folks who are actually going after 50 Shades of Grey are accomplishing the point and purpose of that film, which is to mainstream conversations about sadomasochism and all these unmentionable things, you know?
Well,
so
we don't sit around and talk about porn, so...
Right. You don't sit around talking about porn. That's all this is, and I'm not going to do a point-by-point. Our viewers obviously know what the problem is with pornography and with something like 50 Shades of Grey. It's just disgusting. I don't know where the feminists are, as we mentioned before. I don't know why there isn't some kind of a feminist outrage against the fact that this is a movie about a young secretary, a young vulnerable girl who goes to a high buck, work employment, and her boss basically uses and abuses her. And this is supposed to be a love story. It was released on Valentine's Day, and I bring it up because of the very fact that it was released on Valentine's Day, and young people were encouraged to kind of go out and see how this works and practice, and this is what the new face of love in America looks like. It's disgusting and it's abhorrent, but really, it's just the natural progression of the way things have been going for a long time. And Steve Wood has his organization. You can look him up at dads.org. You can see him on EWTN. You can see him at his own organization, the Family Life Center International. And they do a lot of great work, pro-family, pro-fatherhood stuff, but they also do a lot of anti-pornography work, which is my hat's off to him, because lots of folks don't want to talk about it. It's a huge issue. And as I say, he came into town, he did a really good job, and we just sat down and chatted with him a little bit, asking him about this problem, and hopefully the interview which you're about to see will just kind of help you get the ball rolling. We have to start talking about this. It's no longer the 1950s where if you wanted access to pornography, you had to go to a really creepy part of town and you had to do some really strange things to have access to it, where now that's not the case. It's right at our kitchen tables, it's in our smartphones, and et cetera. So take a look at this interview, and again, I think you're going to see that in this conversation getting started, we're addressing a really, really serious problem, and again, Steve does a great job, so take a look. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt for Remnant TV. I'm sitting here with Steve Wood, who's in St. Paul this evening in order to give an address on the question of pornography to the men's club here in St. Paul called the Argument of the Month, which takes place at St. Augustine's Catholic Church every second Tuesday of the month. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you in on a topic that isn't easy to talk about, I would imagine.
Very tough topic, but it's a needed one in today's world.
What motivates you to just go ahead and tackle something as difficult and as complex as this issue?
Well, my life is focused on solid marriages and family life, and I came to the conclusion that fathers are really essential for that whole process. And what is taking fathers out by the millions in their spiritual life, their leadership, their moral life is pornography. So if I want to help families, you have to help fathers. And to help fathers today, you have to give them the defenses against pornography.
Mm-hmm. Now, by pornography, do you necessarily mean what we used to call triple X pornography, or are you also talking about the sort of the process by which society is being pornographed, or however you would put that, where it's spreading and being mainstream? This idea of pornography?
Well, I smile, but I mean, when I was a boy, what was considered illegal porn is now mainstreamed, as you're saying, everywhere. So yes, you have to put your guard up, and you have to realize the days we're living in are very tough for a man to keep his moral purity.
And it's so necessary. I think right now, this coming weekend, Valentine's Day weekend, we have this film, 50 Shades of Grey, which, from what I understand, the early reviews is basically a pornographic movie that's using sex and violence as part of a love story for young kids to go see on Valentine's Day. What do you make of that?
Well, it says that the health of our society is extremely sick to just allow something like that to go on. And the way people are enticed to go see something like this is curiosity. The same way that a man is enticed to go look at a porn site, not realizing that those images leave a neurochemical imprint on the brain that don't go away. And those could be images that could be wrestled with for 40 years. So you'd say, well, I'm just going to one night kind of check out of my faith and go see this, or check out of my faith and go visit this website. You don't check out because this thing follows you and nags you, and it comes right into the middle of your marriage, which ultimately is an explosion with the family.
So you are of the opinion that pornography then actually definitely has an addictive quality to it with respect to
It does. And I was just asked a moment ago by one of the men, do you really think it's an addictive? You know, what that means is that somebody voluntarily, of their full use of their reason and will, decides to go look at something they shouldn't. And they don't realize that there is a definite hook, because the brain really doesn't know between a sexual activity which would be valid within marriage and something which is totally virtual, but the brain doesn't know the difference. And as a result, the brain is overstimulated, and there's a chemical addiction in a sense that takes place, and you want to come back for more. But the only problem is, to get the same chemical kick, you need something a little bit more degrading, or a little bit more of it, and then you have that built-in habit.
So it really is something that impacts us all in society, whether or not individuals are have the misfortune to get addicted themselves. But the fact is that the common good now is being severely impacted by this massive addiction. And I understand, I just read recently that the porn industry itself generates more revenue than Yahoo, Microsoft, and
Right.
2 or 3 other major companies,
Yeah.
Apple computers or whatever, combined. So obviously this is a massive problem, whether or not individuals themselves have the problem, the addiction, please God they don't, but we still need to recognize it's something that's operating at such a high level in our society and directly impacting especially our young men is going to affect the future for all of us in society. You can't close your eyes, in other words, to this problem just because it might be something you're not personally struggling with. As a society, we're all struggling with it. Is that fair?
Well, absolutely. And the family is the nucleus of both society and the church. It's the birthplace of both. And it's where the faith is transmitted, where life is transmitted. And when you have something so devastating to the marriage bond, ask a wife whose husband is hooked on pornography. It's an adulterous affair he's having with his computer. And it basically, and the divorce lawyers of America are, and they're not exactly the upstanding,
high moral ground guys.
Yeah, high moral ground guys, and they're saying that this is contributing to a large percentage of the divorces they're having. So it's something you want to stay away from for the sake of your children, for the sake of your marriage, and sake of your family.
To me, it's so ironic because we know the loony left has been saying for years that, well, pornography is a healthy thing. It helps it helps men from deciding not to go out and rape somebody or whatever. We understand that. We've been dealing with that for a long time. But what bothers me is the more conservative types seem to be afraid to come in and do like you're doing tonight at the Argument of the Month. Even a lot of our priests seem to be hesitant to address this. And I really don't have an answer. I'm not sure what the reason for that is, but have you encountered that as you run around?
Yes, I have. First of all, I want to thank you on camera for having me on this topic, because it's needed. The silence is killing the church, because when you're talking about millions of Catholic men hooked on mortal sin and don't know the way out, this is an utterly serious problem. It's affecting marriages, it's affecting children, and I've had a very difficult time for parishes and conferences wanting to bring this to the surface. And I say it's the 21st century leprosy. Nobody wants to touch it. It's shameful. I obviously didn't live at the beginning of the 20th century, but I imagine alcoholism was treated kind of the same way. It was the deep, dark secret nobody wanted to deal with and touch. But really, every parish should have some type of support group to help men, because everybody who has a computer Everybody has a smartphone. Everyone who has a laptop or anything like that is vulnerable to this stuff. And to both keep them from starting and to help others get out. Both of those are needed.
Yeah, that's a really interesting or key point, I think. I mean, even 25 years ago, 30 years ago, before the internet, if a person wanted to get involved with pornography, they had to put themselves through a rather embarrassing gauntlet to even have access to it.
That's right.
And now, like you say, it's on the smartphone of every 14-year-old kid in America. The access is right there. And so it's so much more easy for young people to get involved, and therefore, when they go on and get married and have kids, to already be hooked on porn even before marriage. And this is a huge problem that we have to access, or we have to address in a different way than when we were talking about guys in white overcoats 25, 30 years ago doing obscene things. Now it's all the kids, it's all the young people who are being this tidal wave, this tsunami of smut that they deal with all the time. And we have to find ways of addressing the young people, taking them by the hand and leading them through this dark valley, because that's what it is. It's a darkness. They didn't ask for it, but they're in the midst of it.
Well, this is a cancer in the Catholic Church and Protestant churches as well. And you can deal with it in one of two ways. One is simple denial and pretend the problem doesn't exist. And what happens? It spreads. It inevitably will spread. And so it has to be basically resisted. I'm very excited to be here tonight. I'm just really thankful for you having the courage to have me to do this. I mean, I don't really enjoy talking about pornography. As I told you this afternoon, I have 20 other topics. I'd much rather talk, but I am committed to Catholic fatherhood, the Catholic family life, and the Catholic faith, and those are absolutely need to be defended from this plague of pornography, because it's an attack on all three, and it's an attack. This one is straight from hell.
It really seems like it. I don't know if you saw anything from I think it was the Grammys this year, either the Grammys or the Emmys.
I missed those.
I didn't see it either, but someone sent me a link. You know where the link came from? The link came from MTV.
Okay.
MTV called Madonna, old spent piece of used jet trash, Madonna, called her performance demonic, but they were saying in an interesting way. It was like a possession or whatever. And so the images of her running around with people that were dressed with horns and everything, I mean, looking like devils, and it's all dark and looking like a scene out of hell. I mean, what do you think as far as the porn? Not only the classic, the by definition porn industry, but also this sort of merging into the mainstream. Is it crazy, or is it paranoid to say this is really literally of the devil? I mean, the devil is coming in with this. He's taking people's minds over to such an extent through the images and through the addiction that we don't care. Young people don't care anymore about privacy issues, or they really don't care about politics. They're hooked on porn and video games and all these electronic things. What do you say to somebody that says, well, this is really an example of the demonic operating in our
I'll
society?
give you a preview of what I'm going to share tonight. It's one of my closing points. But in the book of Revelation, 4 times, it speaks about Babylon the Great, this great world system set against God, set against the church, that made all nations drink the wine of her impurities, porneia, from where we get the Greek word pornography from. Now, it wasn't talking about internet pornography in the first century, but it was that term porneia refers to all the things depicted in pornography. And the way the world would become drunk under this godless Antichrist spell was being led into impurity. And the mind becomes dark. Jesus said, blessed are pure in heart, they shall see God. But if you're not pure in heart, you're not going to see God. You're going to see substitutes for God. You're going to be led into godless systems. So I believe the world is being led down a path. But the thing is, I can guarantee you there's a lot of very good Catholic men that would like some help getting out of this. And they're even going to Mass, and they're sitting there, but they're not really being challenged to get out of this and not being offered help to get out of it. And that's what we're trying to do tonight.
And it's like any other form of addiction. They need help.
Yeah.
They can't just say, tomorrow I'm going to break the pornography. No more than a cocaine addict can say, tomorrow I'm going to break the coke habit. It's not that easy. So just before we close, tell me a little something, or tell our viewers a little something about your business. I mean, your apostolate, because it's more than just pornography. It's about fatherhood and family and everything else. Yeah. So just
our apostolate is called the Family Life Center International. We have the 3 F's we focus on: the faith, which is essential for family life itself, and then fatherhood, with a particular emphasis on fatherhood, because we feel that fathers are really underrepresented in today's world and in today's church, and yet they're key for family life. And so we have a website called dads.org, pretty easy to remember.
Sure.
Have a free newsletter we send around the world once a month. Have articles of interest and resources. We have things if your marriage is on the rocks and you need a little encouragement to keep things together, tips for raising children, helping your children prepare for a lasting marriage, all those type of resources. We have a couple of books on fatherhood from a Catholic perspective. That's all at dads.org.
Fantastic. I know, as you know, we at the Remnant, we do a lot of work on the liturgical question, the disintegration of the Roman Rite and so forth. But the way things are going right now in society, I think you can expose young people to, solid liturgy, Latin masses every day of the week, But if they're imbibing all of this cultural rot and, moving closer towards pornography or getting involved with pornography, you're asking an awful lot of the liturgy to try to save these kids from where they're heading. When you think how powerful these things are, even to the point of forming addiction, it's more than just the liturgy. It's more than just homeschooling. We have to confront it, as you're doing. That's why I'm so proud to have you here for the.
That's why I'm proud for you to have me.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
Fantastic.
This is a first step tonight.
That's right. The cultural question has to be addressed. So kudos to you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for coming
Thank
out.
you, Michael.
Yeah,
Appreciate
God bless.
it.
Okay. Thanks very much. For Steve Wood, I'm at the Argument of the Month in South St. Paul for Remnant TV. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you next time. Once again, that's dads.org, where you can access Steve's work, and we really do want to encourage our readers to support him, donate to his organization, and let's start taking this cultural war seriously, as Steve is doing. We all, as parents, we need to take it more seriously. I would like to see more Catholic priests, more traditional priests addressing this issue, because I think it needs to be talked about. It was something that people didn't necessarily want to talk about in polite society before, but now we're confronted with a situation in which we really do have to take a frontal assault, a direct approach, proactive approach to dealing with this issue, which is impacting our society, our families, and especially our kids. Thanks very much for listening. We intend to get back on schedule, so be patient with us. The Underground is going to be advancing a little bit, and we're going to be developing some new ideas for how we want this show to continue. It is not on the way out, right, Producer Rob? No, it is not. We have a lot of great things coming up in this next year, so we appreciate your patience, and please look for us again next week when we'll have another episode at the kickoff for Season 3. Thanks very much. We'll see you then.